Hello everybody and welcome back. We're up to question number 19 on the 2001 grade 8 Gauss paper. And question 19 asks, Anne, Beth, and Chris have 10 candies to divide amongst themselves. Anne gets at least 3 candies, while Beth and Chris each get at least 2. If Chris gets at most 3, the number of candies that Beth could get is, so Anne gets at least 3, Beth and Chris get at least 2. So that means that 7 candies have already been spoken for. Alright. So we're going to let A equal the number that Anne gets, B equal the number that Beth gets, and C be the number of candies that Chris gets. So we know A plus B plus C has got to be equal to 10. We know A is at least 3, B is at least 2, and C is at least 2. So we have 7 candies accounted for. And 3 remain to give out. Okay. So we want the number of candies that Beth could get. So all we need to do to know that Beth, if we wanted to ask, can Beth get 3 candies? All we need to do is find some way for Beth to get 3 candies, and to have at least 3, and Chris to have at least 2, and at most 3. If we can find a sort of distribution or a partitioning of the candies so that Beth gets 3, and all the other conditions are satisfied, then we'll know it's possible for Beth to have 3 candies. Same with Beth having 2 candies, 4 candies, 5 candies. If we can find a way to give Beth 5 candies, Chris at least 2 and at most 3, and Anne at least 3, then we'll know that Beth could get 5 candies, and so we could rule out all the answers that don't have 5 in them, for example. So only D and E have 5. So how about we see whether or not we could have 5 candies. So if we take B equals 5, A equals 3, and C equals 2, then A is definitely greater than or equal to 3, B is definitely greater than or equal to 2, and C is between 2 and 3. So it's possible for Beth to have 5 candies, and that narrows our answers down to either D or E. So let's ask another question. Is it possible to hand out the candies so that Beth gets 4? Well, if we take B equals 4, and A equals 4, and C equals 2, then all the conditions are satisfied. A is at least 3, it's 4. B is at least 2, and C is between 2 and 3. In fact, we can always make it so that Chris's candies are 2, and give any extra candies left over to Anne. So if Chris's candies are always 2, then this last condition of C being between 3 and 2 is always satisfied. So the C being less than or equal to 3, that's sort of extraneous information. It's a red herring. You don't need to focus on it. because Anne's number of candies are unbounded. So any extras can go to Anne. How about 3? Could Beth have 3 candies? Well, yeah, sure. We could have B 3, we could have C 2, and the remaining 5 go to Anne. So Anne would definitely have at least 3. B and C are at least 2, and C is at most 3. And the last one, so that would work. Why is this the last one? Because Beth has to have at least 2 candies, so Beth can't have 1 candy. And 6 candies, that wouldn't work. So 6 candies, Beth would have 6 candies, Chris would have at least 2, and Anne would have then 2 at most. And that would violate the fact that Anne has to get at least 3 candies. So we have 2, 3, 4, or 5 candies. And I believe that was answered. 2, 3, 4, or 5. Now, if you're trying to think about ways to do this sort of strategically, if you're in a time crunch, the number 5 only appears in 2 possible answers. So if you were to know that it was possible for Beth to have 5 candies, you would know you're down to D or E. You could make a guess, 1 out of 2 guess. Well, that's how you're going to be right, as opposed to just randomly guessing on a question that's a 1 out of 5 guess. I'm also seeing 4 only appears in C or E. So if you knew that Beth could have 4 candies, if for some reason that immediately popped in your head, you have 3 seconds left to go. You can guess between C or E, 1 out of 2 chance. I usually, if I can narrow it down, my multiple choice options on these contests to 1 out of 2 or 1 out of 3, I'll usually then take a guess. Otherwise, it's better to leave the question blank because you get 2 points for leaving a question blank. And even in Part C, your average on guessing is 8 marks over the 5 possible guesses. That's going to be less than 2 marks on average. So if you don't know something, by all means, admit that to yourself and leave the question blank. You will often be rewarded. But, as I say, if I can narrow down the choices not to a 1 out of 5 guess, but to a 1 out of 3 or a 1 out of 2, I'll often take the guess if I'm stuck, if it's at the very end, because you only have an hour to do the contest. But we have the answer E there, and we'll move on to question number 20, and we'll take a look at that in the next video. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.